So you finally feel prepared to make your first real game, but you realize you don't have any idea what game to make. Please don't create the next generic horror game. If you want to come up with creative and original game ideas, I can try to help you with that. And in this video, I will show you all the steps for creating exciting and creative ideas. This is Game Designer's Notebook, a video series exploring game design topics and helping you with making better games. And without further ado, let's get creative.
I'm sure there are few of you with such creativity, and our industry needs you.
First, you need to get prepared for all of this. So step number 1 is play a lot of games. If you want to be a game developer and work on games, you need to play a lot of them. Start looking at games you play as structures and rule sets and mechanics, and see the smaller games they are made of. I recommend you to play more simple games like the early arcade games or just some casual mobile games. You can even get so much inspired by an old game that has interesting mechanics or ideas. Also, you can try a lot of different board games as they have all their mechanics right in front of your face, so it's much easier to analyze them. And why is all of that, you may ask? Well, the bigger AAA games nowadays are full of so many different elements and content that it's much harder to analyze, and they are created by the same smaller games anyway. So look for game elements and start writing them down somewhere. I recommend you to play the older games in chronological order of their creation to see how ideas are built upon one another and see their evolution. Also, I recommend you to play games that you would normally not play, just to see different mechanics and systems and expand your point of view as a designer. Step number 2 is look everywhere else. Actually, a lot of the games you know came from places not having anything in common with gaming. Shigeru Miyamoto was inspired by his childhood memories of being on an adventure in the forests as a kid, and that's why he created The Legend of Zelda, to really capture that experience. Will Wright was inspired by a book called Urban Dynamics and implemented the methodologies from the book into his game SimCity. He also created Sims after losing his home during the Oakland firestorm of 1991, and he turned his experiences of rebuilding his life into a game. Satoshi Tajiri loved bugs as a kid and loved collecting them, and that hobby inspired him to create Pokemon. You see, basically every single experience, whether it be a hobby you love, an event in life you had, a book you've read, or just anything else, can inspire you to create a game about it. Step number 3 is relax. Make sure you have good quality sleep at night, go for walks outside to clear your mind, and exercise more. Creativity is a mental process, so if you want to be creative and solve practically unsolvable at first sight problems, well, you need to be well rested. Step number 4 is write. Especially when playing a game or experiencing something new, write down every idea that randomly comes to your mind, because that will clear your mind and open up space for more ideas. Even when a crazy idea comes to your mind, don't just ignore it. Sometimes the craziest ideas are the best solution for a very specific problem in the future. Also, do you really think that the idea of being an Italian plumber, jumping on some walking mushroom heads and trying to save a princess kidnapped by a giant turtle is normal? Well, I don't think so, so keep these weird ideas. So as you do this, 2 possible outcomes may occur. The first scenario is getting inspired. That is, as I said, how Pokemon and Zelda were created. Try to get inspired by something not related directly to games. Creativity works when you smash together 2 unrelated things and somehow manage to make a connection between them. Think about some topics you've never heard to be transformed into a game. What if you create a game about parenting? Maybe a game about scheduling the time of different characters. Maybe a game about the experience of learning how to swim. It can be literally about anything. You like to paint? Well, you can create a game about painting. Maybe you love collecting milk bottles. Well, who am I to judge you? And by the way, I have a video about the secret recipe that indie developers can use to become successful, where you will find even more tips about this topic, but more on that later. So there are so many different unexplored topics waiting for you. And there comes step number 5, capture key essence. List out what you loved as a kid. What were your hobbies back then? Also, I bet you had a lot of different ideas coming to you while you read books, watch movies or TV shows, or while just doing anything else. As I said, anything can be turned into a game. By listing them and choosing a theme for your game, you go into the inspiration path. The other way of creating game ideas is the curiosity path. Have you ever wondered how cool it would be to mix a roguelike game with blackjack? Well, that sounds way too weird. There is no possible way that would happen, or maybe there is? Void Tyrant is a mobile game mixing the hit or stand mechanic from the blackjack game with the roguelike gameplay to create a very unique experience for the player. And you thought there is no way these two combine. Well, this is the power of creativity, and I will talk about how that is possible in a moment, but now I want you to just put into practice the next step number 6, relate the unrelatable. Think of any two concepts you would really like to see in a game. It can be a weird combination, in fact the weirder the better. If you find it difficult, you can just get some random games and list them and choose any two of them, or you can use that notebook full of game design mechanics and concepts I've told you to do at the beginning and pick any two mechanics you like. The idea is to mix the unmixable. Or another thing you can do is get a game and decide to remove the main mechanic or component from it. But how is that possible? As an example, how I could remove the jumping from a platformer game like Mario? Well, get Mario 64, remove jumping, and we have Luigi's Mansion. And because he cannot jump, he can interact with the environment in so many different ways, and that constraint shaped the theme, the environment, and basically everything. Or maybe get a component from the game and multiply it by 2. Again, get Mario Bros, multiply the velocity of movement, and you get Sonic. By doing that, you would challenge yourself into solving a very difficult problem, and who knows, you may even invent a new genre. So you should have some ideas at this point, and if you still somehow don't have any ideas yet, you can use some random generators online. So after you manage to come up with some ideas, here comes the step number 7, work on both ends. What you've chosen until now can become your next great game. If you already have chosen a unique experience and an interesting mechanics match, start thinking about working on both of these at the same time. How are they related? Can you find interesting relations between them? If you find it difficult, try to strip down these ideas to their core concepts and on a very basic level find the similarities, and I bet you end up with pretty interesting ideas. I've mentioned Luigi's Mansion earlier. The idea that developers had was to create something completely different from their previous huge success, Mario 64. They had the idea of making a closed space game, something like a dungeon in a Zelda, but they also wanted to showcase the new capabilities of the upcoming console, the GameCube. One of the features was the new lightning rendering system that allowed to render the shadows of the objects in runtime instead of using pre-rendered shadows. So they decided to make a game that will have much more shadows, and that decision led to the idea of having the environment be a ghost-hunted mansion. From there, everything fell into place. The change in the environment and theme shaped the mechanics, the story, the characters, and basically everything. And you can use this approach too. Remember that constraints are your best friends, and having enough can really help your creative process. But you have problems now, don't you? To be creative is to solve problems in interesting and not so obvious ways. And you will have a lot of questions to answer. What will be the rules? What will be the goal? So many questions that need to be answered. So here comes step number 8, state the problem. Game design is about solving problems, and the best way to do it is to clearly define your problem. By defining your problem, you will be focused on your problem only and think about it more clearly. As I said, the Luigi's Mansion theme had the clearly defined problem of how to create an appealing game that will still have one of the Nintendo's biggest stars from the Mario universe, but also make it a closed-space game with a different exploration type in mind that will also showcase the newest hardware from Nintendo. That was a big challenge. And here comes the step number 9, brainstorm the solution. The best way to solve your problems is not to just bang your head into the nearest wall until you eventually get the solution. After stating the problem clearly, you can now easily brainstorm different solutions. One of the best way for that is to create a mind map. This is a picture of the brainstorming stage by the production theme of Need for Speed Most Wanted. You can see how they started with the main team, which is, well, Most Wanted, and they've put many different words that can represent that theme. Some of them led to mechanics, some of them to dynamics or visuals or sound design. This method can really solve many problems, so start with the main word or phrase and start writing everything that pops into your mind, and if there is nothing coming to your mind, start consuming a lot of stuff related to the topic. Brainstorming can solve your constraint problems and the result can shape the whole game. The basic formula is to think of an idea, try it out and repeat the process until it's good enough. And here comes the last tip number 10. Don't forget to have fun. Your game can turn out to be a huge success or a failure, but you should not worry about that because you are an indie developer. You should have fun while doing all of that. That is why I believe indies are those that innovate in the game industry and move the industry forward, because they have the creative freedom to create whatever they want without huge risks. If you are an indie game developer and want to learn more about how to create successful games, you can watch this video next where I'm talking about Nintendo's secret recipe for indie game success. This was Game Designer's Notebook. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.